Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Wisdom Library, a place where curious minds can come to rest. If you've had a long day, or if you simply enjoy drifting off while thinking about the quiet wonders of our world, I'm glad you found your way here. Because tonight's journey is just for you, a slow and gentle wander through the hidden world of mushrooms and mycelium, one of the most ancient, mysterious, and deeply wise kingdoms of life on Earth. There's nothing you need to do now but relax. Let your breathing slow down and allow your thoughts to soften. Tonight, we'll explore the wisdom of mushrooms and the vast living fungal networks that weave through the soil beneath your feet, connecting forests and fields into something like a single breathing organism. Some of what you hear may feel familiar, like the quiet resilience of a forest floor. Other moments may surprise you, like the idea that fungi may speak to one another in something resembling language, or that a single mushroom organism beneath the mountains of Oregon stretches across nearly 4 square miles and has been alive for thousands of years. If these quiet explorations help you rest, feel free to like and subscribe or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here as well, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, simply settle in. Let the calm of the natural world surround you. Let the busy day fade away. And if you're ready, let's begin. Beneath your feet right now, there exists a world you have never seen. Below the grass, below the roots of trees, below the fallen leaves that rest upon the forest floor, a vast and ancient network of life stretches outward in every direction. This is Mycelium, the living body of fungi, and it is one of the most remarkable and least understood organisms on our planet. When most people think of mushrooms, they picture the small caps and stems that push through the soil after a rain. But the mushroom is only a tiny fraction of what a fungus truly is. It is like a flower on a plant, a brief and visible expression of something far more complex beneath the surface. The true body of the fungus is the mycelium, a web of impossibly fine threads called hyphae that can stretch for miles beneath the earth. In a single cubic inch of healthy forest soil, there can be nearly 13 kilometers of these delicate filaments. Imagine that for a moment. In a space no larger than a thimble, an entire landscape of living threads, finer than human hair, reaching and branching and weaving through the darkness. Mycelium makes up between 20 and 30% of the total living biomass in the soil. It holds the ground together, feeds the trees, recycles the dead, and quietly sustains much of the life we see above the surface. And it does all of this in silence, in darkness, without any light at all. For most of human history, we barely noticed it was there. But in recent decades, as scientists have begun to look more carefully at what lives beneath our feet, they have discovered something astonishing. Fungi are not just organisms. They are architects of ecosystems. They are communicators, chemists, healers, and possibly even thinkers. And they have been doing all of this for far longer than we have existed. Fungi are among the oldest complex life forms on Earth. Scientists estimate that they evolved somewhere between 900 million and 1.4 billion years ago. To put that into perspective, that means fungi were already thriving hundreds of millions of years before the first animals appeared, and long before the first plants ever set root upon the land. In fact, fungi are more closely related to animals than they are to plants. We share a common ancestor with them from around 800 to 900 million years ago. Their cell walls are made of chitin, the same substance found in the exoskeletons of insects and crustaceans, rather than the cellulose found in plants. They are heterotrophs, meaning they cannot make their own food from sunlight the way plants do. Instead, they digest their food externally, secreting enzymes into their surroundings and absorbing the dissolved nutrients through their filaments. In this way, they are more like us than like the trees they grow beside. When fungi first colonized the land, somewhere between 460 and 800 million years ago, the Earth was a very different place. The continents were mostly bare rock, scoured by wind and rain, with no soil as we would recognize it. It was fungi, working alongside bacteria, that began the slow process of breaking down that rock, dissolving minerals with acids, crumbling stone into fragments, mixing it with organic matter, and gradually creating the first primitive soils. Without this patient work, plants could never have taken root. Without fungi, there would have been no forests, no meadows, no fields of grain. The entire green world we know today was made possible by these quiet organisms working in darkness for hundreds of millions of years. During the Silurian and Devonian periods, roughly 430 million years ago, when the tallest plants were barely knee-high, the largest living things on land appear to have been fungi. One extraordinary organism called Prototaxites stood up to 8 meters tall, towering over the landscape like a strange and silent monument. For years, scientists debated what it was. Some thought it might be a tree, others a lichen or a kind of algae. The leading interpretation today, based on careful analysis of its internal structure, is that Prototaxites was most likely a massive fungal organism, though this remains an active area of scientific discussion. Imagine walking through that ancient world with no trees, no flowers, only low mosses and ferns, and rising above them all, these enormous columns of organic tissue standing like sentinels over a planet still learning to be green. Around 250 million years ago, at the boundary between the Permian and Triassic periods, the Earth experienced its most devastating mass extinction. Roughly 90% of all marine species and 70% of land vertebrates perished. In the fossil record from this time, scientists have found an extraordinary spike in what appear to be fungal spores. The interpretation remains debated, as some researchers believe these microfossils could be algal rather than fungal in origin. But if the fungal reading is correct, it paints a vivid picture. As forests collapsed and organisms died in vast numbers, fungi may have become the dominant form of visible life on the planet, feasting on the dead, recycling the remains, and slowly preparing the ground for life to return. This pattern of fungal abundance surging in the aftermath of ecological collapse appears to recur in the geological record. Based on what we know about how fungi respond to mass die-offs, it seems likely that when the world breaks, fungi are among the first organisms to begin putting it back together. This role as the great recyclers of nature is one of the most important things fungi do. Every autumn, when leaves fall from the trees, when branches snap and animals die, it is fungi that break them down. They are the primary decomposers of terrestrial plant matter. Their enzymes, including peroxidases, ligninases, cellulases, and many others, are capable of dissolving some of the toughest organic molecules on Earth, including lignin and cellulose, the structural compounds that give wood its strength. Without these enzymes, fallen trees would simply pile up year after year, century after century. The nutrients locked inside, the carbon, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium, would remain trapped, unavailable to the living world. The soil would grow thin and exhausted. New growth would slow and eventually stop. But because of fungi, none of this happens. The dead are gently taken apart, molecule by molecule, and returned to the soil. The nutrients are released back into the earth, where roots can reach them, where seeds can use them, where new life can begin. Fungi create humus, that dark, rich, crumbly substance that gives healthy soil its smell and its fertility. They improve soil structure, help retain water, and support the countless microorganisms that make the earth alive. In a very real sense, fungi are the hands that keep the cycle of life turning. They are the unseen gardeners of the world. But fungi do far more than simply break down the dead. They also form extraordinary partnerships with the living. Perhaps the most remarkable of these is the mycorrhizal relationship, a symbiosis between fungi and plant roots that has existed for at least 450 million years. Around 90% of all terrestrial plant species form some kind of mycorrhizal association. The word itself comes from the Greek myco, meaning fungus, and rhiza, meaning root. In these partnerships, the fungal mycelium wraps around or penetrates the plant's root cells, creating a living bridge between the plant and the soil. The plant provides the fungus with sugars, the carbon-rich products of photosynthesis. In return, the fungus extends the plant's reach enormously, sending its hyphae far beyond the root zone to gather water, phosphorus, nitrogen, and other minerals that the roots alone could never access. This exchange is not a small thing. Plants may allocate between 3 and 13% of all the carbon they fix through photosynthesis to their fungal partners. And in some cases, that number rises as high as 50%. The fungus, in turn, can increase a plant's effective root area by hundreds or even thousands of times. Without their mycorrhizal partners, many plants would simply fail to thrive. They would be smaller, weaker, more vulnerable to drought and disease. The relationship is so ancient and so deeply woven into the biology of both organisms that neither can fully be understood without the other. They co-evolved together, and they depend on each other still. But the mycorrhizal network does something even more extraordinary than simply feeding individual plants. It connects them. Through the mycelium, trees and plants in a forest are linked into a vast underground web, sometimes called the wood wide web. Through this network, resources can flow from one plant to another. A tree standing in sunlight can send surplus sugars through the fungal network to a smaller tree growing in its shade. A dying tree can release its stored nutrients into the network, feeding its neighbors even as it fades. In this way, the forest functions less like a collection of competing individuals and more like a single interconnected community, sharing resources, supporting the weak, and maintaining the health of the whole. The ecologist Suzanne Simard, who has spent decades studying these networks in the forests of British Columbia, discovered that the largest, oldest trees in a forest, which she calls mother trees, are the most deeply connected. A single mother tree can be linked through the mycorrhizal network to hundreds of other trees. She found that these hub trees preferentially send carbon and nutrients to their own seedlings, nurturing the next generation through the underground web. When a mother tree is injured or dying, it increases its transfer of resources to surrounding trees, as if passing along its legacy before it falls. This idea that a forest can share and care for its members through an underground fungal network has changed the way many ecologists think about ecosystems. The forest is not a battlefield of competing species. It is a community bound together by relationships that are invisible to the naked eye, but profoundly important. And at the center of these relationships, connecting everything, are the fungi. In recent years, scientists have discovered something even more surprising about mycelial networks. They appear to conduct electrical signals. In 2022, a researcher named Andrew Adamatsky at the University of the West of England published a study examining the electrical activity of 4 species of fungi: ghost fungi, enoki, split gill, and caterpillar fungi. He found that the mycelium produced spikes of electrical activity, brief pulses of voltage that traveled along the hyphae much like signals traveling along a nerve. These spikes had durations ranging from about 1 hour to as long as 21 hours, with amplitudes between 0.03 and 2.1 millivolts. What made the study truly remarkable was the pattern of these signals. Adamatsky found that the electrical spikes clustered into groups, like trains of pulses, and that these trains could be analyzed in much the same way that linguists analyze words in human speech. His analysis suggested the possibility of up to 50 distinct signal patterns, with a core set of about 15 to 20 commonly used patterns. The average length of a signal train was about 5.97 units, a number strikingly similar to the average word length in many human languages. He published this work in the journal Royal Society Open Science, and it sparked enormous interest and debate. Now, it is important to be cautious here. Not all scientists agree that these signals represent anything like language or conscious communication. Some suggest the electrical activity may simply be related to growth patterns, nutrient transport, or responses to damage. The fungi may be conducting information, but we do not yet know what that information means, or whether it is meaningful in the way that language is meaningful to us. Still, the discovery that fungi produce patterned electrical signals at all is profound. It suggests a level of internal coordination and responsiveness that we have barely begun to understand. The mycelium beneath the forest may be humming with signals we cannot yet read, a silent conversation happening in the dark, and we have only just begun to listen. The wisdom traditions of many cultures have long sensed something special about fungi, even before science gave us the tools to confirm it. In traditional Chinese medicine, mushrooms have been used for thousands of years as remedies and tonics. Ganoderma lucidum, the reishi mushroom, was called the mushroom of immortality and has been valued for over 2,000 years for its ability to promote calm, support the immune system, and restore balance to the body. Modern science has identified over 400 bioactive compounds within reishi alone, including triterpenoids, polysaccharides, and peptidoglycans, many of which show immunomodulatory, antioxidant, and anti-inflammatory properties. Cordyceps, another mushroom long used in Chinese medicine, has a remarkable life cycle. In the wild, it parasitizes insects, growing from their bodies in strange, elongated fruiting structures. Despite its eerie origins, it has been valued for centuries as a tonic for energy, endurance, and respiratory health. Lion's mane, a white, shaggy mushroom that looks like a cascade of icicles, has drawn particular attention from modern researchers for its neuroprotective properties. Studies have shown that compounds in lion's mane can stimulate the production of nerve growth factor, a protein essential for the growth, maintenance, and survival of neurons. This has made it a subject of intense interest for research into conditions like Alzheimer's disease and other forms of neurodegeneration. Turkey tail, with its beautiful concentric rings of color, contains polysaccharopeptides that have been studied extensively for their ability to support the immune system. In Japan, an extract of turkey tail called PSK has been used as an adjunct therapy for cancer patients for decades. Across cultures and centuries, humans have turned to mushrooms not only for food but for healing. And as modern science examines these traditions more carefully, it is finding that many of them rest on real biochemical foundations. The fungi were not just folklore, they were pharmacy. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the ancient human relationship with medicinal fungi comes from the body of a man who died more than 5,300 years ago. Otzi, the Iceman, discovered frozen in the Alps between Austria and Italy in 1991, was found carrying 2 different species of fungi in his possession. One was Fomis fomentarius, the tinder fungus, which he likely used for starting fires. The other was Fomatopsis betulina, the birch polypore, a species known to have antiparasitic, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory properties. When scientists examined Otzi's remains, they discovered that he was suffering from an intestinal parasite called whipworm. Birch polypore contains agaric acid, a compound known to be effective against exactly that kind of infection. It seems likely that Otzi was carrying this mushroom as medicine, a prehistoric first aid kit tucked into his belt, alongside his flint and his copper axe. This means that more than 5 millennia ago, before the pyramids were built, before writing was invented, a man walking through the mountains already knew enough about the healing properties of fungi to carry them with him on his journey. The knowledge was ancient even then, passed down through generations of observation and experience. We are only now rediscovering what our ancestors understood instinctively, that the fungal kingdom holds remedies we are still learning to use. Beyond healing, fungi possess an ability that seems almost magical in its implications. They can clean up pollution. This field, known as mycoremediation, explores the use of fungi to break down or absorb toxic substances in the environment. The same powerful enzymes that allow fungi to decompose wood and leaf litter can also dismantle the molecular structures of petroleum, pesticides, and even some plastics. Paul Stamets, one of the most well-known mycologists in the world, has been a pioneer in this field, demonstrating through experiments that oyster mushrooms can break down diesel fuel and other hydrocarbons into harmless compounds. In 2007, when the cargo ship Costco Busan struck the Bay Bridge in San Francisco and spilled tens of thousands of gallons of fuel oil, mycologist Paul Stamets and a group of volunteers launched an experimental mycoremediation project at the Presidio, near the Golden Gate Bridge. Oyster mushroom mycelium was placed on mats alongside contaminated material and within weeks, the fungi had begun breaking down hydrocarbons, converting toxic waste into harmless compounds. The experiment was small in scale compared to the spill itself, but the results were promising enough to draw national attention to the potential of fungi in environmental cleanup. In Ecuador, the Amazon Mycelium project has been using fungi to help remediate soil contaminated by decades of oil extraction. Scientists have also discovered fungal species that can degrade plastics, a finding that holds enormous promise for the future. A species called Pestalozchiopsis microspora, found in the Amazon rainforest, was shown to be capable of breaking down polyurethane, one of the most common and persistent plastics in the world. Another species, Aspergillus tubangensis, has demonstrated the ability to degrade polyethylene. In one experiment, oyster mushrooms reduced the mass of disposable diapers by 85% in just 2 months. These findings suggest that fungi might one day help us address one of the greatest environmental challenges of our time: the mountains of plastic waste that accumulate in landfills and oceans around the world. Fungi can also absorb heavy metals from contaminated soil, a process called biosorption. Their cell walls have a natural affinity for metals like copper, zinc, lead, cadmium, and even mercury, binding them tightly and preventing them from leaching into groundwater or being taken up by food crops. In some cases, the mushrooms themselves become repositories of these metals, concentrating them in their tissues and effectively removing them from the environment. The idea that a living organism growing quietly in the soil could help us clean up the messes we have made is both humbling and hopeful. It suggests that nature already has many of the tools we need. We simply need to learn how to work with them. One of the most enchanting qualities of certain fungi is their ability to glow in the dark. Bioluminescent fungi, sometimes called foxfire, have been known to humanity for thousands of years. Aristotle wrote about a mysterious cold fire on rotting wood around 382 BCE, and the phenomenon appears in the folklore of many cultures. Today, we know that roughly 70 to 80 species of fungi produce light, emitting a soft bluish-green glow through a chemical reaction involving a molecule called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase, the same basic mechanism used by fireflies. These glowing fungi are most commonly found among species that decompose wood. The honey mushroom, the jack-o'-lantern mushroom, and the bitter oyster mushroom are all known to produce light. In some species, the glow is regulated by circadian rhythms, brightening at night and dimming during the day. Scientists have proposed several reasons for this glow. One possibility is that the light attracts insects, which then help disperse the mushroom's spores. Another is that the bioluminescence serves as a warning to potential predators that the fungus is toxic. A third hypothesis suggests that the chemical process that produces the light may help the fungus manage oxidative stress, a byproduct of its metabolic activity. Throughout history, people have found practical uses for this natural glow. Scandinavian woodsmen used pieces of bioluminescent wood to mark trails through dark forests. During the American Revolution, a small submarine called the Turtle, built in 1775 by inventor David Bushnell, used foxfire to illuminate the needles of its compass and barometer because an open flame would have consumed the limited air supply inside the vessel. It is believed to be the first submarine ever used in combat, and its interior was lit by glowing fungus. The light of fungi has guided human footsteps through darkness for centuries, a quiet gift from organisms that have no eyes to see it themselves. Perhaps one of the most astonishing recent discoveries about fungi concerns their role in the global carbon cycle. In 2023, a landmark study published in the journal Current Biology estimated that mycorrhizal fungi receive approximately 13.12 gigatons of carbon dioxide, equivalent from terrestrial plants every year. To grasp the scale of that number, consider that it equals roughly 36% of all annual global fossil fuel emissions. It is more carbon than the entire nation of China produces in a year. The researchers, including scientists from the University of Cape Town, the University of Sheffield, and the Society for the Protection of Underground Networks, analyzed nearly 200 datasets from 61 peer-reviewed studies to arrive at this estimate. The carbon that plants send to their fungal partners is used in several ways. The fungi use it to build their hyphae, extending their networks through the soil. They exude sticky compounds that bind soil particles together, improving soil structure and stability. And when the mycelium dies, its remains, called necromass, form a complex scaffold of organic matter that can persist in the soil for long periods. Some of this carbon becomes mineral-associated organic matter, the most stable and long-lasting form of soil carbon, locked away in ways that can endure for centuries. There is increasing evidence that fungal residues contribute more to this stable form of soil carbon than plant residues do. This discovery has profound implications for how we think about climate change. For decades, most climate models have focused almost exclusively on above-ground carbon, the carbon stored in trees, in the atmosphere, in the oceans. The underground world of fungi has been, in the words of the researchers themselves, a blind spot in carbon modeling, conservation, and restoration. The soil beneath our feet already stores more carbon than the atmosphere, and all plant biomass combined, roughly 1,500 gigatons. And fungi are one of the main pathways by which that carbon gets there. If we destroy fungal networks through deforestation, intensive agriculture, or soil degradation, we risk releasing enormous quantities of stored carbon back into the atmosphere. The United Nations has warned that at current rates, 90% of the world's soils could be degraded by 2050. Protecting the fungal networks beneath the earth may turn out to be one of the most important things we can do for the climate. As you lie still and let your breathing settle, consider this. The ground beneath you is alive, not just with roots and worms and tiny insects, but with a web of fungal threads so vast and so finely woven that it connects nearly every plant on the continent to every other. This network has been growing and adapting and learning in its own way for hundreds of millions of years. It was here before the dinosaurs. It was here before the first flower bloomed. It helped build the soil that feeds us. It recycles our dead. It filters our water. It stores our carbon. And it does all of this in silence, asking nothing in return. In the forests of Oregon, in the Blue Mountains, there lives a single organism that holds a quiet record. It is a honey mushroom, Armillaria ostoyi, and it is the largest known living organism on Earth. Its mycelial network stretches across approximately 2,385 acres, nearly 4 square miles, beneath the surface of the forest. Scientists estimate that it weighs as much as 35,000 tons and that it may be between 2,400 and 8,650 years old. It has been growing slowly, steadily, patiently for millennia, spreading through the soil one high-fall thread at a time. From the surface, you would never know it was there. The trees above show few signs. Occasionally, clusters of honey mushrooms push up through the soil in autumn, small golden caps that appear for a few weeks and then fade. But beneath the forest floor, the organism stretches on and on, a single continuous being, older than most civilizations, larger than any animal that has ever lived. It is a reminder that size and age and power do not always announce themselves. Sometimes the most extraordinary things in the world are the ones that grow in darkness, in patience, in silence. Fungi have also inspired some of the most transformative discoveries in modern medicine, beyond the traditional remedies that cultures have used for centuries. In 1928, Alexander Fleming noticed that a mold called Penicillium notatum had contaminated one of his bacterial cultures and was killing the bacteria around it. This observation led to the development of penicillin, the first widely used antibiotic, which has saved an estimated 200 million lives since its introduction. Penicillin was a gift from the fungal kingdom. A molecule evolved over millions of years to help fungi compete with bacteria for resources, repurposed by human ingenuity into one of the greatest medical breakthroughs in history. Since then, many other medicines have been derived from or inspired by fungi. Cyclosporin, an immunosuppressant drug that made organ transplantation possible, was originally isolated from a soil fungus called Tulipocladium inflatum. Statins, the most widely prescribed class of cholesterol-lowering drugs in the world, were first discovered in a species of Penicillium. Lovastatin, the first statin to reach the market, came from Aspergillus terreus. The ergot fungus, Claviceps purpurea, which grows on rye and other grains, has been the source of compounds used to treat migraines and to assist in childbirth. Even the development of early psychedelic research, which is now being revisited as a potential treatment for depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress, owes its origins to psilocybin, a compound produced by certain species of mushrooms. The fungal kingdom holds an estimated 2.2 to 3.8 million species, of which only about 80,000 have been formally described. That means we have identified less than 5% of all the fungi on Earth. The vast majority remain unknown, unnamed, and unstudied. Each one potentially holds unique chemistry, unique enzymes, unique relationships with the organisms around it. The next great antibiotic, the next cancer treatment, the next solution to plastic pollution might already exist in a fungus growing quietly, in a forest we have never explored. There is a contemplative dimension to all of this that deserves a moment of rest. Many wisdom traditions have recognized the interconnectedness of life long before science gave it a name. In Buddhism, the concept of dependent origination teaches that nothing exists in isolation, that all things arise in dependence upon conditions and relationships. The mycorrhizal network beneath a forest is a living embodiment of this principle, a web in which every organism is sustained by its connections to others. No tree stands alone. No plant feeds only itself. Life, in its deepest structure, is relational. In the Kabbalistic tradition, there is the image of the tree of life, a structure of interconnected pathways through which energy and meaning flow between different aspects of existence. The mycelial network mirrors this image in a strikingly literal way. A living tree beneath the trees, its branches spreading not upward toward the sky, but downward and outward through the earth, connecting the visible world to hidden sources of nourishment and information. Indigenous wisdom traditions around the world have often understood what Western science is only now confirming: that the forest is a community, that plants communicate, that the earth is alive in ways that demand respect and reciprocity. The Sekwe PMC people of British Columbia, among whom Suzanne Simard grew up, have long spoken of the interconnectedness of the forest in terms that mirror the scientific findings about mycorrhizal networks. The knowledge was always there, held in story and in practice, waiting for the rest of the world to catch up. In Taoist philosophy, there is a deep appreciation for the power of what is hidden, what is soft, what works without forcing. The Tao Te Ching speaks of water, which is soft and yielding, yet wears away stone. Mycelium embodies this principle perfectly. It exerts no force. It makes no sound. It grows in darkness through patience, dissolving rock and building soil one molecule at a time. And over the course of hundreds of millions of years, it has shaped the surface of the entire planet. There is a quiet lesson in this for anyone who feels that their efforts must be loud or visible to matter. The most powerful forces in nature are often the ones that work in silence. As you drift deeper into rest, let your mind settle on the image of a forest at night. The air is cool and still. The leaves overhead are dark against a sky scattered with stars. Beneath the trees, the ground is soft with fallen leaves and moss. And beneath that, spreading in every direction, a web of living threads connects everything you see to everything you cannot. The tallest tree and the smallest seedling are linked. The old growth and the new growth share the same network. Nutrients flow like quiet rivers through the darkness, from those who have abundance to those who are in need. The mycologist Merlin Sheldrake, in his book Entangled Life, writes about how fungi challenge our very categories of understanding. They are not plants and not animals. They do not behave like individuals in the way we usually understand the word. A single mycelial network can be vast, yet it has no brain, no central nervous system, no obvious seat of decision-making. And yet it navigates complex environments, solves spatial problems, allocates resources efficiently, and responds to threats with remarkable speed. Researchers have placed mycelium in mazes and watched it find the shortest path to food sources, a problem-solving ability that mirrors the efficiency of engineered transport networks. In one famous experiment, scientists placed oat flakes on a surface in positions matching the locations of major cities around Tokyo. Then they introduced Physarum polycephalum, a slime mold, an organism once classified with fungi, but now understood to belong to a separate branch of life entirely. They watched as it grew a network connecting the food sources. The network the organism created bore a striking resemblance to the Tokyo rail system, one of the most efficiently designed transportation networks in the world. The slime mold had no blueprint, no engineer, no plan. It simply grew, testing and adjusting, finding efficient solutions through the accumulated wisdom of millions of years of evolution. These observations raise deep questions about the nature of intelligence. We tend to think of intelligence as something that requires a brain, that requires a consciousness, that looks like what we do when we think. But the fungal kingdom suggests that there may be other forms of intelligence, other ways of sensing, processing, and responding to the world that do not require neurons or synapses at all. The mycelium beneath a forest is processing information constantly, sensing chemical gradients, detecting the presence of root exudates from different plant species, responding to changes in moisture and temperature, adjusting its growth patterns to maximize resource acquisition. Whether we call this intelligence or not is partly a question of definition. But what we cannot deny is that it works. It has worked for hundreds of millions of years, across every continent, in every ecosystem on Earth. And there is something deeply comforting in that. In a world that often feels rushed and anxious, the fungi beneath the earth offer a different model. They grow slowly. They connect quietly. They nourish without announcing it. They recycle death into life without ceremony. They have been doing this since long before we arrived, and they will continue long after we are gone. They do not hurry. They do not worry. They simply grow, and in growing, they sustain the world. The diversity of mushrooms visible above the ground is its own source of wonder. There are mushrooms that look like coral, like stars, like cups of beaten gold. The fly agaric, with its scarlet cap and white spots, is perhaps the most iconic mushroom in the world, appearing in fairy tales and folklore across Europe and Asia. The bird's nest fungus produces tiny cup-shaped structures that hold spore packets resembling miniature eggs. The stinkhorn mushroom emerges from an egg-like sac and produces a smell of rotting flesh to attract flies, which then carry its spores to new locations. The earth star unfurls its outer skin like the petals of a flower, revealing a round spore sac at its center that puffs spores into the air when struck by a raindrop. There are mushrooms that fruit underground, like the truffle, prized by gourmets for centuries and hunted with the help of dogs and, historically, pigs. Truffles form mycorrhizal partnerships with the roots of oak, hazel, and other trees. And their intense aroma is a strategy to attract animals that will dig them up and disperse their spores. The white truffle of Alba, Italy, can sell for thousands of dollars per pound, making it one of the most expensive foods in the world. And yet it is produced by a tiny fungus living in symbiosis with tree roots, doing nothing more than what fungi have done for hundreds of millions of years. In the tropical forests of the world, fungi take on forms that seem to belong to another planet entirely. Cordyceps fungi parasitize insects, taking control of their behavior in ways that are both fascinating and unsettling. A cordyceps-infected ant will climb to a precise height on a plant stem, clamp its jaws onto a leaf vein, and die in that position, held aloft by its own death grip. The fungus then grows a long stalk from the ant's head, releasing spores from above to infect other ants below. Scientists call these ants zombies, but what is happening is the result of millions of years of coevolution between fungus and insect, a relationship so finely tuned that the fungus can manipulate the ant's muscles and nervous system to position itself for optimal spore dispersal. The world of fungi is also a world of astonishing chemical creativity. Fungi produce tens of thousands of unique compounds, many of which have no equivalent in the plant or animal kingdoms. Some of these are toxins, like the amatoxins produced by the deathcap mushroom, Amanita phalloides, which is responsible for the majority of fatal mushroom poisonings worldwide. The deathcap's poison works by inhibiting an enzyme essential for protein synthesis, causing irreversible liver and kidney damage. Other fungi produce compounds that are hallucinogenic, antibiotic, antifungal, antiparasitic, or immunosuppressive. The chemical repertoire of fungi is a vast and largely untapped library, and each species represents a unique volume within it. As the night deepens and your body grows heavier with rest, think of the mycelium as something like a breathing presence beneath the forest. It exhales carbon dioxide, just as we do. It responds to the seasons, growing vigorously in the warm, wet months and slowing to near stillness in the cold of winter. Research suggests that when a tree is attacked by insects, it may send chemical signals through the mycorrhizal network, prompting neighboring trees to produce defensive compounds before the insects arrive. The evidence for this kind of underground warning system continues to grow, though scientists are still working to understand exactly how the signaling occurs. When a section of the network is damaged, the mycelium can reroute its connections, finding new paths through the soil in much the same way that a river finds new channels when its course is blocked. There is a quality to fungal life that the Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh might have recognized, a quality of interbeing. Nothing in the fungal world exists separately from everything else. The mushroom cannot exist without the mycelium. The mycelium cannot thrive without the trees. The trees cannot grow without the soil. The soil cannot form without the fungi. Each element of the system depends on every other element, and the whole is held together not by force, but by relationship. When we look at a healthy forest, we are seeing the visible surface of an invisible web of mutual aid that stretches in every direction, above and below, near and far. This interconnectedness extends to us as well. The air we breathe was produced in part by forests sustained by mycorrhizal fungi. The food we eat grew in soil that fungi helped create. The medicines that have saved millions of lives came from fungal chemistry. Even the bread we eat and the beer we drink are products of yeast, a single-celled fungus that has been our companion since the earliest days of agriculture. Saccharomyces cerevisiae, baker's and brewer's yeast, is perhaps the most intimate fungal partner in human history, transforming grain into bread and grape juice into wine for at least 9,000 years. We are not separate from the fungal kingdom. We are entangled with it, dependent on it, shaped by it. And in a time when so much of the natural world feels threatened, the fungi offer both a warning and a hope. The warning is that when we degrade soil, clear forests, and poison the land with chemicals, we are destroying the very networks that sustain life on Earth. The hope is that these networks are resilient. Given a chance, mycelium can regrow, reconnect, and restore. Given a chance, fungi can help us heal what we have damaged. In the quiet laboratories of researchers around the world, new applications for fungi are being explored every day. Mycelium is being grown into building materials that are stronger than concrete and lighter than wood. It is being fashioned into packaging that can replace styrofoam, biodegrading completely within weeks of being discarded. companies are growing leather-like materials from mycelium, creating fabrics that look and feel like animal hide, without requiring a single animal. Architects are designing structures that incorporate living mycelium, buildings that can grow and repair themselves over time. In agriculture, the understanding of mycorrhizal networks is transforming how we think about soil health. Farmers who work with the biology of the soil rather than against it, reducing tillage, minimizing chemical inputs, and encouraging diverse plant communities, often find that their soils become more productive over time, not less. The fungi beneath the surface rebuild soil structure, improve water retention, suppress plant diseases, and make nutrients more available to crops. This approach, sometimes called regenerative agriculture, recognizes what fungi have always known, that life thrives not through domination, but through cooperation. As you lie here in the soft stillness of the night, your body growing heavier, your thoughts growing quieter, perhaps you can hold one last image in your mind. Imagine the entire earth, not from above, but from below. Imagine looking up through the soil, through the dark, warm layers of earth, and seeing the mycelium everywhere, stretching across continents, threading through forests and fields and gardens, connecting the roots of ancient trees to the first green shoots of spring. Imagine the slow pulse of nutrients moving through this network, the quiet exchange of sugars and minerals, the patient work of decomposition and renewal that has been going on since before the first animal drew breath. This network has no center and no edge. It has no beginning and no end. It simply is, growing and connecting and sustaining, the oldest and most enduring form of community on Earth. And you are part of it. The food you ate today was grown in soil that fungi helped build. The air you breathe was cleaned by forests that fungi sustain. Your very body contains elements that were recycled through fungal networks countless times before they became part of you. You're not outside this web. You are woven into it, a temporary expression of the same interconnected life that has been unfolding on this planet for over 1 billion years. So as you let your eyes close and your breathing deepen, let that thought settle gently around you, like a blanket. The earth beneath you is alive. The darkness is not empty, but full of quiet intelligence. And somewhere beneath the soil, beneath the roots, beneath the last layers of the waking world, a vast network is holding everything together, patiently, silently, and with a wisdom far older than words. Thank you for spending this time here, drifting through the hidden world of fungi with me. We have moved through ancient forests and underground networks, past glowing mushrooms, and the quiet recycling of the dead, through the discoveries of scientists and the wisdom of contemplatives, all the way down to the fine threads of mycelium that hold the world together. And somewhere in all of that, in the slow pulse of the underground and the soft glow of foxfire in the dark, there was you, breathing slowly, thoughts softening, maybe already drifting toward sleep. As you listened, you may have felt moments of wonder, or you may have simply let the words wash over you like rain falling on a forest floor. Both are the right way to travel here. The fungi never hurry, and neither should we. Their story stretches across billions of years, and we are only passing through one quiet night at a time. What lingers is the feeling they leave behind, the quiet recognition that you are part of something vast and ancient and deeply interconnected. Every breath you take connects you to forests sustained by fungal networks. Every meal you eat carries the legacy of soil that fungi built. You are never separate from the living world. You are always within it, and it is always within you. So as you drift towards sleep, let your thoughts soften like mycelium spreading through warm earth. Picture a forest floor carpeted in moss. Imagine the faint green glow of foxfire on a fallen log. Feel the slow, patient pulse of a network that has been growing since before the first sunrise. Let your body rest in that calm, where time stretches gently, and the weight of the day becomes lighter with each breath. If these quiet explorations have brought you peace or sparked your curiosity in soft, gentle ways, feel free to like and subscribe. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. And if you happen to still be awake, you're welcome to join us in the next video, where another journey into wonder is waiting. But for now, there is nothing more you need to do. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and let the quiet wisdom of the fungi carry you into sleep. Good night.